Somewhere in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, there is an artifact with a name that stops historians cold. Not named by a priest. Not named by a theologian trying to prove a point. Named by Egyptologists, by archaeologists, by the scholarly consensus accumulated across more than a century of study, because of what it contains. According to Wikipedia, it is known as the Merneptah Stele, the Victory Stele of Merneptah, and the Israel Stele. That third name is the one that matters for this investigation. The man who commissioned this inscription was a pharaoh, a military ruler announcing his conquests to an empire. He was not writing theology. He was not recording someone else's history for their benefit. And yet the inscription that bears his name also bears the name Israel, confirmed through hieroglyphic text independently translated by multiple Egyptologists, with its dating established by stratigraphy and cartouche identification. This is what that artifact actually tells us, and what it cannot. To understand the significance of this artifact, begin with what we know about the man who commissioned it. According to Wikipedia, the Merneptah Stele is an inscription created by Merneptah, a pharaoh who reigned over ancient Egypt from 1213 to 1203 BCE. That date places him in an era more than 3,000 years in the past, a time when Merneptah ruled an empire capable of conducting and recording large-scale military campaigns, which is precisely what the stele documents. The stele's full formal name, according to Wikipedia, is the Victory Stele of Merneptah. That name signals the character of the document. This was a monument commissioned by a ruler to record and announce military achievement. Merneptah was not writing philosophy or theology. He was not producing a neutral historical archive. He was a pharaoh making a political statement, carving a record of his campaigns into durable material for the purpose of commemoration and projection of power. That context is important for how we read whatever the inscription contains, because what a ruler chooses to record tells us as much about political priorities as it does about historical events. The stele was not known to the modern world until 1896. According to Wikipedia, it was discovered at Thebes by an archaeologist named Flinders Petrie. According to Wikipedia, the stele has since been housed at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, where it remains today. That detail matters more than it might initially appear. Many of the most consequential ancient documents exist only as copies, or as later transcriptions of originals long since lost. The Merneptah Stele is not a transcription. It is not a copy. According to the confirmed source record, the artifact physically exists at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It is accessible to researchers. It has been studied by multiple Egyptologists. And the basis for accepting what it says has been verified through multiple independent methods. According to the confirmed source record, the hieroglyphic text has been independently translated by multiple Egyptologists, not a single reading by a single scholar, but convergent translations by specialists working separately. And the dating has been confirmed through two distinct lines of physical evidence: stratigraphy, the science of reading the geological layers in which an artifact is found, and cartouche identification, the reading of Merneptah's own royal seal carved into the inscription. These are not circular arguments. They are separate methodological procedures that converge on the same conclusion. 3 independent lines of verification. 1 artifact. 3,000 years old. Sitting in Cairo. Now examine the evidence itself with precision. Begin with the name. According to Wikipedia, this artifact is also called the Israel Stele. That designation, used in Wikipedia's own description of the artifact, and reflected in dedicated peer-reviewed scholarship, including Hazel's 1994 study in the Bulletin of the American Schools of Oriental Research, represents a scholarly judgment about what the inscription contains. It is not a colloquial nickname. It is how researchers and institutions refer to this object, and that choice of name reflects what trained specialists have found in the text. The academic literature makes the point directly. In 1994, researcher Michael Hazel published a study with a title worth reading carefully, Israel in the Merneptah Stele, published in the Bulletin of the American Schools of Oriental Research. According to the source record, this is a cited scholarly publication. The title itself is significant. it is not framed as a question, not, does Israel appear in the Merneptah Stele? It is a study of what that reference means and how it should be interpreted. The existence of a dedicated peer-reviewed paper on the reference to Israel in this inscription, published in the Bulletin of the American Schools of Oriental Research, confirms that the reference is substantive enough to warrant focused specialist analysis. Also in 1994, K.A. Kitchen published Pharaoh Triumphant, The Life and Times of Ramesses II, a confirmed scholarly publication from the same period of Egyptological study. The existence of this body of scholarship situates the Merneptah Stele within a well-studied historical framework, not as an isolated curiosity but as one artifact among a broader recoverable record of the era. Now consider the methodological rigor behind the dating confirmation. According to the confirmed source record, the stele's dating has been established through stratigraphy and through cartouche identification. Stratigraphy means the physical layers of earth in which the object was found can be read to establish a datable context. This is not interpretation of text, it is physical science applied to geological deposits. The cartouche is Merneptah's royal seal, carved into the inscription itself, tying the object to a historically documented individual. One method is geological. One method is epigraphic. They agree. And the translation itself rests on convergent independent scholarship. According to the confirmed source record, the hieroglyphic text has been independently translated by multiple Egyptologists. In ancient language study, independent convergence across trained specialists is one of the strongest available forms of verification. When scholars working separately, without coordinating their readings, arrive at the same interpretation of an inscription, the probability that the reading reflects what the text actually contains increases substantially. The combined weight of these elements, the consistent scholarly naming reflected in Wikipedia's own description, the dedicated peer-reviewed publication on the reference to Israel, the dual-method dating confirmation, and the independent translation convergence, does not constitute a single argument built on a single line of evidence. It constitutes multiple independent arguments pointing in the same direction. The convergence of independent translation, dual-method physical dating, and dedicated peer-reviewed scholarship gives this artifact an unusually strong evidentiary foundation. A rigorous approach to this evidence requires confronting its limitations directly. Not to dismiss the artifact, the evidence for its existence, dating, and translation is substantial. But to define precisely what it can and cannot establish. The first limitation is embedded in the stele's own name. According to Wikipedia, this is the Victory Stele of Merneptah. The word victory is not neutral. This is a document produced by a state, commissioned by a ruler, intended to record and celebrate military achievement. The selection of what to mention, how to characterize enemies, and how to frame the narrative of a campaign was shaped by the political purposes of the monument. A document produced to celebrate a ruler's power is not the same as a neutral chronicle. That does not mean its references are fabricated. A claim of victory against a non-existent enemy would not serve the political purpose of such a monument. But it does mean the framing serves the interests of the commissioner, and a careful reader brings that awareness to the text. The second limitation is perhaps the most important, and it must be stated without qualification: this inscription does not prove the Exodus. It does not corroborate a narrative of migration from Egypt through a wilderness. What it establishes, and only what it establishes, is that a people identified by the name Israel existed and were recognized as significant enough to appear in an official Egyptian state document during the reign of Merneptah, who according to Wikipedia ruled from 1213 to 1203 BCE. Their presence in a particular region at a particular time. That is the scope of the claim the evidence supports. Nothing more, nothing less. Historical evidence does not always give us the full picture we might want. Good historical reasoning means accepting what any single source can actually establish, and not inflating it. A third limitation is physical. Any inscription that has existed for more than 3,000 years bears the accumulated damage of time, surface weathering, potential fracture, loss of detail in particular passages. The fact that the hieroglyphic text has been independently translated by multiple Egyptologists, as confirmed by the source record, is a strong indicator that the key passages are legible and interpretable with sufficient consistency to support that convergent reading. But intellectual honesty requires acknowledging that no inscription of this age is a perfectly preserved, undamaged document. Physical limitation is always present. A fourth consideration: while the scholarly consensus reflected in the artifact's common name and in publications like Hazel's 1994 study represents the durable judgment of trained specialists over an extended period, scholarly consensus is not the same as absolute certainty. It is the best collective assessment of available evidence. It can, in principle, be revised if new evidence or new analytical methods produce a different reading. That is not a weakness. That is how evidence-based disciplines are supposed to function. Acknowledging it is part of honest engagement with the material. None of these objections dissolve the confirmed evidence. The artifact exists. The translation has been independently confirmed. The dating has been established through two physical methods. The scholarly community has named it the Israel stele for over a century. These objections define the appropriate scope and limits of the claim. They are not arguments against the evidence, they are instructions for how to read it carefully. Let us be precise about what the evidence actually establishes, and why that precision matters. According to Wikipedia, the Merneptah Stele is also called the Israel stele, a name it carries because researchers have identified in its hieroglyphic text a reference to Israel. That translation has been independently confirmed by multiple Egyptologists. The dating, established by stratigraphy and by cartouche identification, places the inscription within the reign of Merneptah, who according to Wikipedia ruled from 1213 to 1203 BCE. That is the factual foundation. Everything that follows must be understood in relation to it. What this establishes, not suggests, but establishes as the reasonable conclusion from confirmed evidence, is that more than 3,000 years ago, a people identified by the name Israel were recognized as significant enough to appear in an official Egyptian royal inscription. Consider the implications of that framing. For those who study ancient history with methodological rigor, the significance is specific. This is an external, independent corroboration of a name and a people. The Merneptah Stele is an official Egyptian royal inscription, independently translated and dated, that contains a reference to Israel. For those approaching this as skeptics, the artifact offers something concrete, a physical object in a public museum, with independently confirmed translation and independently confirmed dating, that places a people called Israel in the ancient world more than 3,000 years ago. That is not an argument from religious authority. It is an argument from material evidence, the kind of evidence that can be examined, challenged, retranslated, and redated. The fact that it has been examined, challenged, retranslated, and redated across more than a century, and the translation has been independently confirmed by multiple Egyptologists and the dating established through two physical methods, is itself part of the evidentiary picture. And for those who want to understand what actually happened in the ancient Near East, in that particular corridor of land, during that particular era, the Merneptah Stele is a fixed point. One of the rare moments where the broad archaeological and historical record intersects with a name that appears elsewhere in the ancient world's transmitted literature. Fixed points of this kind are rare. They are valuable not because they resolve every question, but because they anchor inquiry in physical reality. The stele does not tell us everything. It answers precisely one question, and it answers it with unusual evidentiary clarity. Was there a people called Israel in the ancient world during the reign of Merneptah? According to an Egyptian pharaoh's official victory inscription, independently confirmed by multiple Egyptologists, the answer is yes. There is something worth sitting with here, at the end of this investigation. Flinders Petrie was excavating at Thebes in 1896 when he found this stele, according to Wikipedia. It had been in the ground for more than 3,000 years by the time he uncovered it. The pharaoh who commissioned the inscription was not writing for posterity in any modern sense, he was writing for his court, his era, his political audience. He could not have anticipated that this monument, in that material form, would survive the fall of his dynasty, the transformation of the landscape around it, the passage of more than 3 millennia, to be found by an archaeologist, housed in a Cairo museum, and studied by researchers who would name it after the people mentioned within it. And yet here it is. Physically present. Publicly accessible. Studied. History has a way of surfacing answers to questions we did not know to ask. The Merneptah Stele was one artifact from one reign, found at one site, in 1 year. It has attracted dedicated peer-reviewed scholarship, including studies focused specifically on the Israel reference it contains. Not because anyone decided it should be important, but because of what it contains and what that implies for our understanding of the ancient world. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo holds this stele today. Other museums hold other artifacts. Other sites have not yet been excavated. Other inscriptions, in other languages, from other states, carved into other materials, may already exist in collections or beneath the ground, waiting to be found, translated, and understood in relation to questions we are still refining. The Merneptah Stele was in the earth for more than 3,000 years before anyone found it. The evidence that changed a century of historical understanding was not in a library. It was in the ground. What question do you think is still waiting for its answer?